Hi, I'm Abby, I have a lot of records, and this is Vinyl Monday. So welcome back, or welcome if this is your first time here. Vinyl Monday is the who, what, when, where, why, and how do I feel about classic albums in my collection. If deep dives aren't your thing, don't worry. I also do Vinyl Monday in 60 seconds here on my channel, over on my Instagram, as well as TikTok. Before we start this week's video, thank you so much for allowing me the space to make last week's heavy lifting video. It was a very different style for me with twice the reviews and a lot less of the haha funnies, but it was an important video to make. I'd also like to announce the season finale of the Dolls podcast coming to you this Friday. There will be one more casual chit-chat hangout episode after that, and then we're on break until January. It seriously doesn't feel real that Emma and I have been doing this since May. I wrote the finale. It's taken a minute to get together. We will have a very special guest joining us, and I can't wait for you guys to hear it. Okay, announcement time over. On to this week's album, which worked its way into the schedule last minute once again. Season 4 has been quite unpredictable so far, but it's not every day that a founding member of the most important band to ever come out of the San Francisco scene passes away. This is a new band to the Vinyl Mondayverse. I've never covered them before, and I wanted to give them their flowers this week. Specifically him. I really hope this review elevates his place in this very important group. In memory of Phil Lesh, who has trucked on from this plane to the next, this week's album is The Grateful Dead, American Beauty. Congrats if you guessed this one. Remember, if you want to play along, all you gotta do is check out my community tab. That's where I post my hints to what next week's album is gonna be. I make announcements, I host polls, you can find all of that on my channel. And, if you so choose, you can always read the written version of this review on my website. Alright, let's take the plastic off. Over the years, I've come into ownership of 2 copies of American Beauty. This was my first. I bought this one from the record store where I went to college. It was my junior year, the day we came back from Thanksgiving break. I walked the mile to the store in the snow to pick this up before they closed for a storm. As for the second, and the copy I'll be holding up for most of this episode, I'm gonna be real with you guys. I don't remember how I got a hold of this. Maybe my P.O. box over the years? I'm really not sure. I have 2 copies of American Beauty, again, because I forgot I had one and just bought another. One of these is on the green Warner label, the other is on the white. Emma, if you're watching this, one of these is yours now. I don't need 2, you have 0, music is for sharing with friends, let's talk about this cover art. The American Beauty art is credited to Kelly Mouse Studios, a collective of artists Alton Kelly and Stanley Mouse. One day the Dead calls either Kelly or Mouse, saying the album is done and it's to be called American Beauty. A simple but beautiful title, so Alton and Mouse came up with a simple but beautiful cover. The wood panel design is very 1970s, very Americana to reference the Dead's blues and bluegrass roots, but with a touch of psychedelia to honor their beginnings. If you hold this cover upside down and in a mirror, I'll try my best in post to show you. Hopefully you'll see the title transform into American Reality. I've never seen it. Other people have. I don't know. On the back cover, we have a photo by George Conger of something us art historians, or otherwise Germans, call a Kunstkammer. They became popular in the Northern Renaissance. They are also known as cabinets of curiosity. Basically, it's a collection of cool shit. People would bring weird stuff home from their travels and display them all together, and when you were entertaining, you'd pull this stuff out and go, hey, look at my cool shit. Party entertainment before Cards Against Humanity. But it makes sense to feature, considering so much of the album is about travel. On American Beauty, we have the classic era lineup of the Grateful Dead, consisting of the one, the only, Jerry Garcia. On guitar, steel guitar, some piano, and lead vocals, Bob Weir singing lead on Sugar Magnolia and Truckin', he also plays guitar. Pigpen McKernan, kick-ass name, on lead vocals and harmonica on Operator. Our recently departed Phil Lesh on bass, some guitar and piano, and lead vocals on Box of Rain. Bill Kreutzmann on drums, Mickey Hart on percussion, and rounding out the lineup is principal lyricist Robert Hunter. Special guests include David Grieman on mandolin, Howard Wales on organ and piano, David Torbert fills in on bass for Box of Rain, David Nelson helps out on guitar, and Neil Lagan on piano for Candyman. American Beauty was produced by The Grateful Dead with Stephen Barncard. Roll transition.
Just keep trucking on.
It's the 1960s in San Francisco, a truly magical time backdropped by Ken Kesey's famous acid tests. A critical element of 60s counterculture I was woefully uneducated on until about now, and an exciting music scene which naturally evolved from folk to psych rock. And labels were paying attention. Jefferson Airplane went with RCA Victor, Big Brother was snapped up by Columbia, Country Joe went with folk label Vanguard, and Warner Brothers jumped on the bandwagon in 1967, taking a chance and signing the Grateful Dead. But for the first couple years, they just could not make these guys happen.
Stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen.
Through Anthem of the Sun sessions in '68, the Dead made a reputation for themselves as, for lack of a better term, asshats. Their complete and utter lack of experience in the studio, plus some abstract ideas, if you can call them that, made these guys damn near unmanageable. I don't think Warner was expecting that at all. They were expecting a bunch of peaceful stoner hippies that would be, you know, easy to mold. That did not happen. In fact, when Warner sent them a warning about their behavior, the Dead sent it right on back with this. I'm honestly kind of impressed. Considering this complete irreverence and self-admitted lack of commercial potential, it's kind of a miracle Warner didn't drop them. Outside their core market, Anthem didn't sell upon release, neither did the follow-up, Oxomoxoa? Oxamoxa? If the Dead were gonna survive as working musicians on a label, something had to change because the world around them was changing. In a matter of 2 years, the San Francisco they knew was gone. It began with the federal government outlawing LSD in 1966. Illegal Sid was fun for about a year before people turned to the hard stuff. First speed, then smack. Haight-Ashbury went from hippie mecca to tourist trap. People would go for day trips to gawk at the locals. A number of significant historical events that we've covered before on this channel effectively killed the hippie movement. See this literal funeral procession the Diggers held for the Summer of Love. As a result, that San Fran music scene evaporated. The counterculture got more radical, including the Airplane. Janis left Big Brother to go solo. Country Joe could never quite replicate his Woodstock success. The only exception to this was Santana. They were still very young and very new in 1969/1970. They had their aha moment next to the Dead. See the Abraxas episode. Starting in December of 1969, the Dead hit this streak of cosmically shit luck. Not comically shit, cosmically shit. It started with Altamont, the formal end of the hippies as most people see it. Basically, the Dead and the Airplane wanted to put on the Woodstock of the West. The Flying Burrito Brothers, CSN, the Airplane were all to play. The Rolling Stones were set to headline along with the Dead. But Altamont very quickly spiraled out of control. There was a last-minute venue change. Hell's Angels were security. It was bitter cold. The drugs were bad. There was a fatal car crash outside the venue. Hell's Angels were antagonizing the crowd and performers. A pregnant woman got hit in the head with a bottle. It all culminated in the killing of Meredith Hunter during the Stones' set. I don't like that the Dead shirked responsibility for Altamont. They really let the Stones take the fall. Same with the Airplane. But the Dead were right not to take the stage that night. It was way too dangerous. Then, not even a month into the new decade, mind you, New Orleans police raided the Dead's hotel and charged the whole crew with possession. Busting the Dead for possession sounds like low-hanging fruit to me, but alright. Warner Brothers had to bribe the DA to get the charges dropped. Everybody got off except for their sound engineer, Bear Stanley. He'd already caught charges for LSD back home. You can imagine the Dead were on thin fucking ice with Warner after this. That lovely little incident, plus commercial flops Anthem and Oxomoxa, it's one of the two. Basically, the guys needed a hit to get themselves out of the weeds, and they needed it now. But it's about to get even worse. Mickey Hart's dad, their manager at the time, renewed their contract without their permission, then took off with what little money they had left. Let that sink in. Mickey's own father sold his son and all his son's friends down the river. Ultimate betrayal. Then the black dog sat on their doorstep. In August of 1970, Jerry Garcia's mother got in a car crash. She spent about a month in the hospital before eventually succumbing to her injuries. At the same time, Phil Lesh's father is diagnosed with cancer. Phil and Robert wrote Box of Rain for him. It was a very aggressive cancer. He passed very quickly. While playing a gig at the Fillmore East, the guys got the news that Jimi Hendrix had died, and a few weeks later at the Winterland, they got news that hit close to home. Janis Joplin, a good friend of the band, had passed. Phil said in his book, quote, "By this time, we were all in a state of extreme apprehension, metaphorically looking over our shoulders and wondering, what next? Nevertheless, the Dead kept on truckin', becoming one of the touring acts of the day. Known for their almost supernatural ability to jam on a tune and encouraging bootlegging of their shows, the Dead soon formed a small but devoted following. We know them today as the Deadheads." I imagine this awesome fan base gave the guys a much-needed boost heading into sessions. The Dead were road dogs through and through. They much preferred playing on stage and were continually inspired by the road. Let's face it, riding in a cramped van through the highways and byways of the American Midwest will have you thinking about country and folk music. We can't forget that during all of this, Workingman's Dead happened. I feel bad neglecting this record, especially seeing as I share a birthday with it. Frankly, we do not have the time to cover this today, but Workingman's Dead marked a massive creative shift. Amidst the chaos of 1968 into 69, pop music as a whole ditched psych for, say it with me folks, the back to basics thing. I don't need to tell you how all of this happened again, just know the band had a lot to do with it. Their record was so good, it made Eric Clapton break up Cream. I need to cover that this season. No band was more emblematic of this shift than the Dead. They started rehearsing with their guitars unplugged and produced 2 records within 4 months that were so radically different from Anthem and it's kind of insane. Who had a lot to do with this? 3 guys who happened to be recording at Wally Heider's studio the same time as the Dead. C, S, and N. They just had 2 back-to-back smash hit records together, one with a couch and one with Y, and carved out a space for acoustic rock in pop alongside the heavier stuff coming from across the pond. Man, 1970 was one hell of a year for music. Of the 3, C, S, and N, Cross was most connected to the San Fran scene. He rented a house just outside the city to record Deja Vu. The cover photo was taken in the backyard. And he was very good friends with the Airplane. David wrote Triad, which the Airplane recorded for my favorite LP of theirs, Crown of Creation. They also wrote Wooden Ships together.
Wooden ships on the water, very free and easy. Easy, you know the way it's supposed to be.
David got close with the Dead too. He lost his girlfriend Christine Hinton in a car accident the year before, so he knew the exact sudden, acute grief Jerry was feeling. The Dead often credited CSN for teaching them how to sing. Cross always denied this. Quote, "They knew how to sing. They had their own style, and they had the most important quality down already, which is the tale telling. They knew songs." The 2 groups exchanged a vocals-infused sound with a willingness to fuck with time signatures. It's natural cross-pollination between artists. Joni Mitchell Kantner and David Freiberg of The Airplane and Mike Shreve of Santana were all hanging around during this time too. Another critical influence on the Dead at this time was the Allman Brothers Band. Considering both groups had 2 drummers, 2 guitarists, and an organ player, they were really quite naturally suited and learned a lot from each other. But as the Dead's sound changed, they didn't really need TC's John Cage shit anymore, so he left the band. Just like Workingman's Dead, American Beauty was recorded at Wally Heider Studios in San Francisco between August and September of 1970. It was slammed out in all of 3 weeks to get it the hell over with and get back on the road. The track listing of American Beauty goes as follows.
She's got everything delightful. She's got everything I need.
Opening up side 1, we have Box of Rain, followed by Friend of the Devil. Then Sugar Magnolia, next Operator, and closing out side 1 is Candyman. Opening up side 2, we have Ripple, followed by Broke Down Palace. Then Till the Morning Comes, next Addicts of My Life, and the album closes with Truckin'. American Beauty was released in November of 1970, just 4 months after Workingman's Dead. This is the shortest gap between any of the studio albums in the Grateful Dead's entire discography. Sometime after this, Mickey took some time off from the band to kind of process everything that had gone down with his dad. Completely understandable. And like everything with the Dead, it seems, the full American Beauty picture didn't take shape immediately. Truckin' was only a minor hit upon release, peaking at number 64, but in time, the Library of Congress would certify it a literal, actual national treasure.
I'm gonna steal it. I'm gonna steal the Declaration of Independence.
He's gonna steal the Declaration of Independence, Ben.
And the album as a whole is not just a staple in the Dead's discography, but in the classic rock canon as a whole. Friend of the Devil is one of their greatest hits, despite never being released as a single. I don't feel the need to focus on reviews from the time or contemporary ones this week. Instead, I want to evaluate this album's place in pop culture. Notably, the series finale of perhaps television's greatest one-season wonder, Freaks and Geeks. American Beauty plays a pivotal role in that episode and features very prominently in the soundtrack. In case you haven't seen it, teenage social standing is a through line of the whole series, and main character Lindsay Weir is faced with a decision whether or not to attend the summer writing program at UMichigan. Because of fucking course Freaks and Geeks takes place in Michigan, outside Detroit no less. Lindsay's advisor, Mr. Rosso, gifts her a copy of American Beauty. It helped him a lot through his college years.
What do you want me to do? To do for you, to see you through.
Why are you talking like that?
Just quoting the Dead. I know it always makes me feel better.
What? Quoting the Who?
Not the Who. The Grateful Dead.
She completely falls in love with the album, makes friends with the Deadheads.
That is a great album, man.
Fools her parents into thinking she's accepted the position at UMichigan, but in reality, she's gone off with her friend Kim to follow the Grateful Dead.
Man, la da da da. La da da da.
Why do I make note of this piece of media? Because the Deadheads were, and still are, a huge reason of why American Beauty ascended from cult status to iconic rock album. For their next level dedication, the little subculture they've created over the decades, and multi-generation longevity. I think we're on our 4th generation of Deadheads now. I truly believe they are the coolest fan base in the world. They move the Grateful Dead's music more than any label, chart, critic, or institution ever have. Although it's worth mentioning that after Workingman's Dead and this, Warner didn't totally hate the Dead anymore. So, what do I think of American Beauty? going in, I well and truly thought I wasn't going to like this album. For some reason, I'd got it in my head that the Grateful Dead were too hippy-dippy for me, even I have my limits. But overall, I was pleasantly surprised by how balanced and grounded American Beauty is. It's a return to formula for some of the guys. Jerry played bluegrass, and the proto-Grateful Dead was a jug band, and Pigpen was a blues guy, and an exploration for others, like jazz head Phil. Dennis McNatty said in the VH1 Classic Albums joint anthem American Beauty special that the Dead didn't start rehearsing with acoustic instruments because it was commercial, but because the music demanded it. I do agree with the latter half of that statement. American Beauty is very obviously more grounded than Anthem, and they had to tone that down to focus on vocals. But what do you mean not commercial? Dennis seems to have forgotten that CSN existed, had one of the most pre-ordered albums of 1970, and 1/3 of them were friends with the Dead. And I do have to insert the caveat here that when you listen to this band on record, you're only getting a fraction of the intended musical experience. I think it was Phil that described the live sections of That's It for the Other One as a 1,000-petal lotus opening. That's how I think of the Grateful Dead as a whole. These songs, in the form in which we hear them on this album, are the most stagnant form they were ever in. These compositions were always moving, always evolving, never played the same way under the same circumstances twice. The lotus of each song opened and the outside petals wilted off. We only get one little petal on American Beauty, but it's no less profound. This is an album about young men facing their mortality. They emphasize the hippie value of living in the moment because they learned that lesson the hard way. And they'll soon lose one of their own. I believe this was the last studio album with Pigpen on it. I couldn't help but notice that the art of American Beauty's follow-up, Wake of the Flood, not only does it have very similar composition, Wake of the Flood features a wheat farmer who looks an awful lot like the Grim Reaper, or maybe the Rider-Waite Tarot Hermit. We're pretty immediately faced with mortality ourselves on American Beauty. It opens with Box of Rain, Phil's song to his dying father. Robert Hunter admitted the Box of Rain title was kinda by accident. Quote, "By Box of Rain, I meant the world we live on, but Ball of Rain didn't have the right ring to my ear, so Box it became, and I don't know who put it there. Clever." Even if it's accidental, I love the box imagery. Circles and spheres are infinite, right? Boxes are finite, confined. You're stuck on this plane until it's your time to move on to the next. Phil didn't have a strong, assertive frontman voice. None of these guys did. If we're speaking technically, this recording is pitchy. But what Phil did have was the necessary vulnerability to deliver this song. Listen to how his voice quivers, even on simple sustained notes. It's youthful, almost like a boy who's still figuring out how to use his man voice, and it feels helpless. What do you want me to do for you to see you through? When we were all little babies, our parents, in an ideal situation anyway, helped us out when we couldn't help ourselves. They fed us, they burped us, they changed our diapers, stayed up with us when we couldn't sleep, held us when we scream cried. At some point, when our parents grow old, we have to help them when they can't help themselves. Visit often, make them as comfortable as possible, stay up with them. What do you want me to do to watch for you while you're sleeping? As abstract as Boxes of Wind and Water are, this song isn't some lofty hippie shit. This is just a man actively losing a parent and feeling completely powerless. He wants to help, but there's nothing he can do here besides be here. That's the gravity of American Beauty right there. Walk into splintered sunlight, inch your way through dead dreams to another land. Maybe you're tired and broken, your tongue is twisted with words half-spoken and thoughts unclear. That's the delirium of a dying man. It's just a box of rain. I don't know who put it there. And later, the line that's stuck with me since Phil's passing. Such a long, long time to be gone, and a short time to be there. We're helpless to the procession of time. Box of Rain teaches us that life is always worth living, and loving is always worth the pain. The inevitability of death makes living life to the fullest essential. Friend of the Devil was co-written with Marmaduke Dawson of the New Riders of the Purple Sage. That's one hell of a name right there. And this is one of the Dead's outlaw songs, like Mama Tried and Casey Jones and the like. I'm not sure what their fascination with outlaws was, but considering the bust in New Orleans, they might have considered themselves something of outlaws. We also have our first proper appearance of Jer Bear on this record. His thin but no less warm voice tells the story of this guy who's escaped prison. He's doing everything he can to stall going back to the slammer, like engaging in fetal collaborations of questionable parentage. The devil is financing our narrator's prison break. Ran into the devil, babe. He loaned me 20 bills. I spent the night in Utah in a cave up in the hills. But then he comes to take the $20 back in the very next verse, so it's kind of like a loan. Something tells me that this $20 was in exchange for his soul, and it doesn't feel like our narrator wants to uphold his end of the deal. Friends of the devil won't be friends of yours for long, my friend. This is a very country-forward song. It's finger-picking on finger-picking on finger-picking. Maybe a little too soft for me? I remember hearing this and being like, ah, maybe the Dead are too hippie for me. Now, hearing it in context with the rest of American Beauty, I view Friend of the Devil as one installment of something every great album should have. A strong 3 to 4 song run to start. Deja Vu has Carry On, Teach Your Children, Almost Cut My Hair, Helpless. The White Album has Back in the USSR, Dear Prudence, and Glass Onion. And American Beauty has a 4-song run. Box of Rain, Friend of the Devil, Sugar Magnolia, and Operator. While I love this unit, I don't love its sequencing. I strongly believe Sugar Magnolia and Friend of the Devil's spots should be swapped. Can't believe I got that on the first try. Just try it for yourselves. The flow is better. Sugar Magnolia is one of the most rock-oriented numbers on American Beauty. It's got a lot of valence thanks to Phil's very melodic playing. That style came from him not being a bass player. Yeah, he joined the band as bassist just because they needed one, and he made it up as he went along. This song features the Dead's famed squiggly-sounding harmonies and syncopation to boot, probably something Phil picked up from his enduring fascination with Stockhausen, and Jerry and the guys picking that up from jazz heads like David Crosby and the Airplane. Discovering the wonders of nature, rolling in the rushes down by the riverside. I'm reminded of the grass fuck scene in Woodstock. Takes the wheel when I'm seeing double, do every triple drive. Pays my ticket when I speed, financially independent and unwilling to confine to gender roles. She's as light a presence as a breeze in the pines in the summer night. She comes skimming through rays of violet. She can wade in a drop of dew. She's an ethereal girl who's just a joy to be around. A hippie's dream girl. Every man needs a woman like Sugar Magnolia in his life. Someone who makes him appreciate the little things. We come back down to earth with Pigpen's only singer-songwriter moment, Operator. Mickey Hart said this period in the Dead's career was, quote, sort of stepping out of our spacesuit and coming down to earth and putting on a pair of Oshkosh and digging the furloughs. No song is more emblematic of that statement than Operator. Top to bottom, it's a simple, inoffensive front porch tune about a guy trying to track down his runaway lady, washboard, harmonica, and all. Others might call Operator a weak spot on the album. I do not. I really like Pigpen's gruffer voice in contrast with the boyish Jerry, Bob, and Phil. It gives this work an aged quality, like fine wine instead of college bathtub mead. What did you put in that tub? American Beauty's weak spot is Candyman. It's a little long, it drags the album's momentum down. I know it's about a dealer, but for the world's horniest Candyman seeking revenge on Mr. Benson, it's one sluggish song. I don't know if you should have the shotgun to blow him straight to hell, man. You sound inebriated. Side 2 perks up with Ripple. Robert was most proud of the line, "Let it be known there is a fountain that was not made by the hands of men." And rightfully so. That is a gorgeous interpretation of whatever intangible life force connects us all, whether that's God, juju, or psychedelics. Jerry sounds so warm and sweet on this song, like a naive and hopeful boy about to set out on the hero's journey. But the words are wise, like the old mystic who helps him along the way. There is a road, no simple highway between the dawn and the dark of night. And if you go, no one may follow. That path is for your steps alone. You who choose to lead must follow, but if you fall alone. You can't shirk your responsibilities in life. You have to take accountability if you posture yourself as someone to look up to. That is a very important message these days. Though we can't escape the confines of time, life, and death, the way we navigate it is ours and ours alone. Free will is real. That's a really inspiring message. For such profound shit, this is comfy, cozy music. It's gentle, finger-plucked guitars and lush mandolin. I really wish David got to come in earlier. His pre-chorus entrance feels hokey without flourishes through the verses to fill it out. Being this is a hippie band, here come the group vocals. But I'm so blissed out at this point that I don't even care if it's a cliche. It's nice, dare I say heartwarming. There's very little space in the grooves between Ripple and Broke Down Palace. Like Ripple, Broke Down is spiritual without invoking any specific deity. Rob paints the picture of the river which runs through all of our lives in a classic American way. It takes a while for this song to mature into something, but it blooms into another set of words I'm sure we've all been ruminating on lately. Fare you well, I love you more than words can tell. Till the Morning Comes is the strongest musical evidence that the dead were hanging around CSN. Tell me this song isn't literally Everybody I Love You. In fact, I feel like Till the Morning Comes is what CSN were trying to do with Everybody I Love You. But they just couldn't manage. This song feels more intentional while also being freer to move. Then comes Addicts of My Life. This song is just stunning. The music stays out of the way of the vocals, but the bass line is fleeting and just enough to be noticed. It's very reminiscent of Sun King and Don't Let Me Down. The vocals are the shining star. It's hymnal and homey, proceeding solemnly, with each guy completely in tune with each other's inflections, as they sing of a magical inner world to take refuge in when things are hard. In the attics of my life, full of cloudy dreams unreal, full of tastes no tongue can know, and lights no eye can see. In the book of love, where all the print is blood and all the pages are my days, and the secret space of dreams, this song is pure poetry. It's some of Rob and Jerry's best work together. Attic praises the power of love, and being that these guys are artists, the power of love is the power of the muse, no matter how elusive. I think the following line says it all. I have spent my life seeking all that's still unsung, bent my ear to the tune, and closed my eyes to see. The thrill isn't in the chase of the muse, but maybe the chase is the comfort. A moment of soliloquy amidst the madness inside and out. American Beauty hasn't just given me 2 new favorite Grateful Dead songs, it's given me 2 new favorite songs. period. This channel's oldest slogan is "Come join this long, strange trip." I still use it as a thank you when newbies comment, just subscribed. Of course, it came from the last song on this album, Truckin', a much needed rock-oriented number after a pretty subdued side 2. Truckin' is a blast. It's super fun, especially Bob's delivery of, "If you got a warrant, I guess you're gonna come in." A laissez-faire fuck off if I've ever heard it. I am a total sucker for these kinds of epics and autobiographical songs. Truckin' is just guys living in the moment, living life on the road, and rolling with the punches, appreciating it now more than ever. More grateful, you could say. In a way, this song has become about the Deadheads too. They find the same comfort the Dead and all their spin-off bands have in traveling around the country. According to Rob in the VH1 special, the guys were supposed to keep adding to the song as the years went on.
Once in a while, the music gets into the street. 50 old ladies bug every cop on the beat. They're putting the lock on Lindley Meadow, and keys are beginning to look like we can't play in the park.
Would it have been fun? Yes. Would it have been a nightmare to remember it all? Also yes. Gotta take logistics into account. Just keep trucking on, hang it up and see what tomorrow brings. The aforementioned long, strange trip. This song is just chock full of iconic Grateful Dead lines. This album has been so much about introspection and person-to-person relationships. Before we close out, I want to point out a specific verse that speaks to the collective. One of the only times American Beauty does this. "What in the world ever happened to Sweet Jane? She lost her sparkle, you know she isn't the same. Living on Reds, vitamin C, and cocaine, all a friend can say is, ain't it a shame?" This isn't so much the death of a Jane as it's the death of the group she's in, the hippies. People putting down the weed, hash, and LSD for way stronger shit and killing the optimism, killing the potential. Ain't it a shame? In his book, Phil Lesh described the bond between the members of the Grateful Dead, both as musicians and as men. Quote, "The Grateful Dead has always been collectively dedicated to many ideals: family, community, freedom, risk-taking. But for me, it was always the music. With all its ups and downs, it's an exhilarating experience to improvise, on stage and in life, with one's fellow humans, who, after 40 years of living, working, disagreeing, and completing one another's thoughts, musically and conversationally, are connected by a bond that's thicker than blood," as Bob Weir likes to say. He also said, quote, "Thank the Lord for music. It's a healing force beyond words to describe." If you haven't read the book or listened to Phil narrate it himself, I recommend pairing it with American Beauty. Musically, it's a return to earth, emblematic of a larger return to the self after this generational devotion to the collective, after it either spiraled out of control or burnt itself out. But this album isn't bitter at all, which is remarkable considering the mass loss of innocence and the band getting hit with tragedy after tragedy. But you don't get that from the music. We're left in the golden glow of the simplest happiness us humans can feel. Just being happy to experience life. Thicker than blood and the healing power of music. That's the lifeblood of American Beauty. If you were to prick its thumb on the rose, that's what would come out. In a way, it's kind of perfect that the guys serendipitously suggested this title. They only found out it was this rose variety after the fact. Life grows with thorns. If you live life to the fullest, if you grab it and pick it for yourself, you're gonna get pricked. It's inevitable. American Beauty makes peace with the bleeding. In a way this listener didn't know she needed. My personal favorites off this one are Box of Rain, Sugar Magnolia, Ripple, Addicts of My Life, and Truckin'. Remember, if you want to keep up with all of my favorites from all of the Vinyl Mondays, I have a Spotify playlist linked in my description. I update it every week. And that's it! That is the Grateful Dead's grand introduction to the Vinyl Monday verse. That was American Beauty. What do you think of this album? What do you think of the Dead? Leave a comment letting me know. I love hearing what you guys have to say about albums that I love. And remember, despite what some guy on the internet might tell you, Your opinion matters. If you like what I do here, you should like this video and subscribe to my channel. I post new episodes of Vinyl Monday every Monday morning at 11, and the season finale of the Dolls podcast is going up Friday at noon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye! Gotta go lend some schmuck $20.